Hey friends, welcome to yet another Zoom chat on my Clay's Canucks commentary YouTube. This one I'm super excited for because you guys know that I don't know anything about prospects. I always say once we draft them, I will read up on them, I will vlog about them, but prior to that, no clue. So there's no one else that I'd rather get than I'd say the premier person when it comes to prospects, looking through the lens of the NHL and the Vancouver Canucks. So please welcome my new good friend, Cam Robinson. Cam, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, Clay. I'm glad we could work it out.
Yeah, and tell me about that jersey, that sweet jersey you're wearing.
Yeah, so my 5-year-old is a diehard Canucks fan. I have no idea where he got it from, right? But he loves hockey, loves the Canucks. And I mentioned this morning that I was going to go on this podcast with you, a Canucks centric one. And he's like, "Well, you got to wear a jersey." And he was already in the closet digging through my piles of jerseys, and he pulled out. So I've got the Salmon Skate, the Pavel Bure 96 jersey on here. So one of my favorites too, that actually a Twitter follower hooked it up. I put it out there maybe a year and a half ago that I was looking for a Salmon Skate. I was looking for a McGillney, and he's like, "I got a beret," and I was like, "Oh, I like a beret." So he sent it over to me. So it was pretty awesome.
Oh, I'm in my office, so I can't wear my jersey to work, at least not today. What's your son's name? Who dug that up for you?
My son's name is Olakai.
Awesome. Tell me he's got great taste, truly.
Yes. Yeah. Besser's his favorite guy, but I couldn't find him a Besser jersey at the time. So last year for his birthday, I ended up getting him a Pettersson jersey, and he's happy with that too. But I think he's got his eye on a Besser one of these days as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good second choice.
Yeah.
Cam, seriously, I talked in my intro how I don't know a lot about prospects truly. Like I follow up on them once the Canucks draft them, but I totally respect all that you do, your knowledge. So can you tell the folks out there a bit about your work with elite prospects and EP Rinkside?
Yeah. So, excuse me, coming out of, I ran Dauber Prospects there for forever. And then, yeah, I did some freelance stuff with Elite Prospects with JD Burke and the great gang over there. And about, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 months ago, they brought me on full time. And we playoff stuff. We do fun stuff. I run basically the entire fantasy hockey department over there too. And then our scouting group, I can't say enough good things about the group we have in there. So we've got, I don't know how many people, 8 or 9 people in our team, and just tremendous workers. Like we have a Slack group that the conversations are just constantly flowing. I'm learning a ton from them. We're spitballing ideas and then just putting in the hours. And then we do our write-ups. So our guide is coming out on Monday, excuse me, on the 21st. And if you're an EP Rinkside subscriber, then you already have access to it, which is lovely. You'll get to see our final board. We have all our scouting notes on there. So, a little sneak peek is we put out for Matty Beniers there, and it's 8 pages of scouting reports from game reports. So, if you're a nerd for that kind of stuff, you're going to have more than you can handle. And even if you're just a casual fan, it'll provide you with, the snapshots that you need to understand, who's my team looking at taking here? Who do I want my team to take? So, it's a terrific thing that, if you're a member, you just automatically get it rather than having to spend an extra $20 to buy the guide or something like that. And then, I do my deep dives there. I'm working on one for Mason McTavish right now. Nice. That'll be coming out later this month. Just having a good time watching tons and tons of tape and writing about these players.
That's pretty cool, Cam. Well, hopefully after this video goes out, you might even get some more subscribers once people see the wealth of knowledge that you are. Not, there's a brain with those good looks, obviously.
Yeah, I like to. I tell my wife that anyway. She's not sure. Yeah,
I love it. Cam, where did your interest in prospects actually develop from?
I played the game my whole life, and I had coaches tell me that like you should be a coach one day because I had that mindset where I was looking for ways to improve myself and to improve systems in my other players. And then when it was quickly became apparent I wasn't going to be an NHLer, and it was going to be more of a hobby for life. I don't know. I really got into just kind of scouting them and similar to you, is once the Canucks drafted them, 10, 15 years ago, I would really get into who these players are. And that kind of morphed into who do I want them to take?
Yes.
And then, just after my son was born, he's turning 6 this summer. it was an odd time to choose it, but I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to write about these guys. And so I applied for a job at Dauber Hockey and got it. And it kind of took off from there. And I've made video scouting my niche because I used to live in Victoria for 10 or 12 years, and it was easy to get to games and, you know, travel around a little bit. But now I live on a smaller island on the Gulf Islands. And so it's hard to get to games. And so video scouting with the technology, it's just kind of worked well for me. And obviously with the technological boom with it, it's anyone can do it from anywhere in the world now. So that's definitely helpful.
Well, of course, and that's where we were able to connect this morning. That's awesome. Now, obviously, you had the hockey knowledge from playing it to a good level and good communication with your coaches. But how about the writing side then? Did you also have a background in writing, or did that just develop as you went on?
Well, I have a double major. So I finished up a history degree at university. So tons and tons of essay writing. You get, you know, experience of cranking out an essay in 12 hours in the stacks, in the library stacks there when the pressure's on. So I did have the experience doing that. I was never, you know, an ace student in English or anything. That was usually my sister's thing. I was more of a math guy. But no, it's something that I've worked on, and I fancy myself something of a storyteller. So if I can say the words with my mouth, then, you know, I should be able to put them on, you know, words on paper. So, you know, lots of, if I go back and I read some of my early articles, you know, it's cringeworthy for me to read anyways, because I feel like I've come so far in that. I used to have my wife editing my work when I put out a post, and, you know, I can't be doing that anymore, as she's got too much to do and I write too much. So I've had to learn and adapt, and, you know, Grammarly doesn't hurt either. So
right. Yeah, no, that's for sure. You see those ads all the time. That's really cool how you communicate mostly through writing and video work, but at least you're able to communicate. Same as I would look at my early videos from my vlogs from 10, 12 years ago. Yeah. Cringeworthy as well. And I'm not just talking about what I was saying. I think it's how I was looking to, but that's for another, I think that's for another show. We can talk about that. So, and then what interests you the most, Cam, about covering prospects? Is it too simplistic to say, because you want to see how these guys do and you know, and you want to follow their careers, or what interests you the most about covering prospects?
You know, it's a great question. I think it's the challenge. Honestly, it's identifying the skills, the traits, the people that are going to succeed. And you know, to point out like this guy should be first overall, not so hard. You know, most people can ascertain that from watching a couple of games even. It's finding those guys that, you know, someone else thinks shouldn't be drafted that you think could be a star. And so I really take on that. I'm a competitive person, and I always have been with sports and in life in general. And, you know, in a good humor way, but I do want to win. I played a game of chess with my son this morning. He got up early, and he's only 5, and I like to keep it balanced, but it hurts me when I have to throw out a couple blunders just to keep him in the game. So I'll do it for him, but not for many others. So in this world, I really take it as a challenge. And, you know, I like to see what other people are thinking, and then, you know, conversely be like, you know, I don't agree with that, and I think I'm right, and here's why. And so in order to do that, you have to put in the work. You know, you can't just read other people's scouting reports, or, you know, watch a couple of highlight shifts and come up with, like, this is my guy. No, you have to dig into the minutia of it and really break down every skill. And that's where learning right on the job and being able to have just like a wealth of connections. So NHL scouts and executives and all the public outlets and the guys I work with at EP, everyone's really terrific to communicate with and to share thoughts. And even if it's off the record, you can steal those little tidbits and just ideas for things to look for. And so I just try to soak up all that information as much as I can and then put it to use.
Oh, I love it, brother. And we were joking around before I pressed the record button, comparing our families. You know, you have kids that are 6 and 2. I'm a little older, so I got 19, 17, and 13. I'll say this, take your wins right now while you can, because as soon as they get into teenage years, you're done.
Oh man, I might give him the win in chess, but we play mini sticks literally every night. So it's dinner, clean up, and then we play a game of mini sticks before bed every night, and it's gotten to the point now where like he legitimately, I can't score on him like half the time. Like he's down there in a butterfly, and like I'm working hard, trying to zip it by his ear to go top cheddar, and no, he's good. So it's already happening a little bit here.
I love it. No, we'll get the families together. That's awesome. Okay, so if you would humor me with this, Cam, instead of doing like a mock draft, like who do you think is going to go 1, 2, 3? I'd love just to ask you about the consensus, if that's even the top 9, top 10, just in whatever order. I have it a certain order. I want to ask you about it, and then maybe at the end I'll get to who do you think the Canucks may end up taking, because they may be there at 9, but I know that's so hard to predict. But if we can go one by one, just maybe about a minute on each guy, would that be okay with you?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. And if you want to throw in where you think they'll go, that's fine, but you know, that's not a requirement. So for each guy, just tell maybe, I think the people that watch my channel, they're the on average, they're like the casual to some hardcores for sure, but a lot of casual fans. So they want to know, just tell me about this guy and tell me why he's so good. Okay. So let's start with the 4 defensemen. I think that a lot of people are talking about. Let's start with Owen Power. Tell us about him.
Okay. So 6'5", 200+ pound left shot defenseman, excellent skater, like technically a very sound skater. So I watched almost every minute of his season this year, and his stride is long, it's powerful, it's fluid. He's not going to be Quinn Hughes with the feet going a mile a minute and he's darting around and doing that. He's going to get the puck, and it's not looking like his legs are moving all that quickly, and all of a sudden he's across the red line, because it's just so powerful. So a kid that size that can skate that well, really, he's going to be set up for life. Defensively, very, very strong. So he's got a good gap, got a good stick. He can play physical. He's just going to be smothering on defensive ends. So, in the NHL, teams are going to want to avoid his side of the ice when they're coming into the zone. Offensively, not overly gifted. He does have, he's got a big shot naturally. He uses kind of a half clapper more than the full windup. Doesn't walk the line a ton. I don't see him as like a top power play guy on a really good team, unless they don't have a top power play guy. So more of that secondary power play, or maybe if they run a 2D top PP, something like that. But, you could probably expect to get between 30 and 45 points out of him on a given season, but he's going to chew up minutes. This is the type of guy that's going to play 25, 26 minutes a night in all situations. He's not going to be a pillar, not franchise defenseman maybe, but a top pairing guy that's going to chew up those minutes for you.
I presume you were not surprised at his strong performance playing alongside Troy Stecher at the World Championships.
I am really impressed with what he can do in a short amount of time and adapt and develop quickly. And so, I was talking with a scout earlier in the year. I've kind of gone back and forth on him at the top of my board. Yeah. And I was talking to, a director of amateur scouting for one club, and I was saying why I didn't think that. And he said, Cam, you're overthinking it. Look at what he did in Chicago in the USHL 2 years ago. He stepped in. He didn't look all that great by the end of the year. Dominant. Came into the NCAA this year as a draft eligible player. So he's a little bit older. He's an 18-year-old, an 02 birthday. Came in, getting lots of minutes, but didn't look great, making some mistakes. By the end of the year, looking dominant. Goes to the World Championship. First game or two, couple of mistakes, looking a little shaky. End of the tournament, dominant. So it's just like a real microcosm of how he can adapt. And so I expect the same thing in the NHL too. He's probably going to come in, look a little shaky if he even comes in next season. I think he might go back to Michigan when he does. And then, by the end of the season, by the end of his second season, you're going to be like, this is the player for us.
Awesome. And I won't ask you who's at the top of your board until the very end, but is there an NHL comparable to Owen Power, at least roughly right now? I know for all these guys, it's kind of early to say, but
yeah. I had someone ask me Colton Parayko, something in and along those lines. I think the top end of his ceiling would be maybe Alex Pietrangelo, but on the left side. I think that's probably the ceiling for him. Yeah. But I think Parayko's a pretty decent comparable. He's more physical than Parayko is, but they're both big. They both skate really well. They're both strong defensively. So someone in that mold.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go continue on the blue line. A name that obviously will draw a lot of interest here. Whether he'll be there at 9 is another story. Luke Hughes, tell us about him, and how is he similar and different to Quinn for Canucks fans?
So much bigger. So 6'2", he had the growth spurt. And so this year he was still dealing with that, that adjustment to when you put on a few inches quickly. Very, very good skater, just like Owen Power, not Quinn Hughes, not Jack Hughes, not that electric, can't touch him in a phone booth, really walking the line well. He's more of a north-south skater, get up and go. So, excuse me, transitionally, he's going to be a great player. He's going to cause headaches for teams as he either rushes the puck himself or jumps in and becomes that trailer up high. His processing speed offensively isn't as strong as his brothers either. So he can, I said he's got a little bit of Philip Broberg syndrome, where he's got the speed and he's got the aggressiveness to jump up and lead a rush. Doesn't always have a plan for what he's going to do when he gets there, and not maybe the greatest problem solver. So some guys are planners, some guys are problem solvers, and they can both make it work, but you got to be good at both, or one very good at. And so, the thing about Luke is that he's very, very young for this crop. So in a sea of 2002 born players at the top of this draft, he is a late 03. So he's almost a year younger than Owen Power. And so, not everybody places a ton of value on that. But for me, think about when you were 17 years old,
Yeah.
the growth that you had between your 17th and 18th birthday,
Yes.
physically, socially, emotionally, mentally, everything, right? Like it can be massive. And maybe it doesn't always happen over that period. Maybe it happens between your 18th and 19th or 19th and 20, but I think that there's a lot of room for growth for him. A couple of concerns is that injury he had this year, tearing some ligaments off of his foot and ankle. Not a great injury to come back from. That could be detrimental long-term. Let's hope it's not. He's young. Guys like that can usually bounce back, but for someone who his game is, hinges on his skating, moderately concerning. If we're looking at through the Vancouver lens, not a great fit for their pipeline either, right? So Jack Rathbone, I think, is going to be a comparable player to Luke Hughes long-term. So if you have Luke, Quinn, and Rathbone, one of them's playing on your third pair and not seeing any power play minutes, and that seems wasteful. Now at number 9, if it's Luke Hughes who's sitting there and he's the end of that tier, great. Go ahead and grab him. Figure it out later, right? Maybe maybe Rathbone becomes a trade chip. Maybe Hughes becomes a trade chip. Who knows, right? You let the chips fall where they may. But yeah, it's not a perfect fit in Vancouver outside of having some brothers back on the team.
Love what you said about because my second son is 17 years old, and I just think of how much he's growing just every day. So you can see where that 12, 14, 16 months could make a difference in terms of maturity overall across the board.
Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Also on the blue line, the only right-hander in this crop, Brandt Clark. A lot of people talking about him because of that right side specialty. What should we know about him?
Brandt Clark, one of my favorites in this group. He is the smartest player in the crop for my money, and not just defender. I think he's the smartest player in this entire draft. Wow. He uses everything that he has in his toolbox to his advantage. So he's not a dynamic skater. He has excellent edges. I talk about, Quinn, you can't touch him in a phone booth. Brandt can do that a little bit too, but it's just by opening his hips and using his body positioning, and he's slippery in that regard, and he can get into holes and he can get away from checkers that way. He will need to clean up the stride a little bit. He's a little knock-kneed, and so with big fast forwards coming down on him, if they cross him up and he gets his feet moving the wrong direction, they're going to be around him in a hurry. Puck retrieval is the same sort of thing. When he gets back there, he's going to have to be quicker under the puck and get it up and out quicker. But the potential is there. There's tons and tons of potential for him to be, either a really nice secondary offensive defender who can defend really well too on your second pair. But I think that ceiling of being a top pairing right shot defenseman who could play top power play minutes is also a reasonable outcome for him if things go right. So, I think that the offense is there without a doubt. His first pass is excellent. He can skate the puck out too. It's not going to be he's not going to be a shot out of a cannon, but he can definitely transition it with his feet. And if you want to play good defense, I think you need to be smart. You need to work hard, and he's definitely smart. And I've had a chance to interact with him a lot. I interviewed him for a piece I wrote a few months ago. Really great kid, like down to earth, understands his limitations and where he needs to get better. Drive. I think he's going to be an excellent player in the NHL. I also think he's going to be one of these ones, despite being the only true right shot defender at the top of the group, that he might slide down the board a little bit. He might get close to Vancouver at 9 there. Probably, we were joking on a podcast last week. He probably goes to LA at 8 just to break some hearts, but
of course,
he might be the guy that could be around for Vancouver. And I think that would be a home run pick for them, because for my money, he's a top 3 prospect in this draft.
Wow. Right, left side notwithstanding, is there a comparable right now?
That's an interesting one. A comparable for him. Do I maybe Shea Theodore a little bit?
Wow.
Something like that. He's not as big as Theodore, but he's close. He's 6'1". So, maybe Theodore, something like that. He's one of the guys that I don't really have a comp for.
Sure.
Right off the top of my head. Stylistically, he's interesting. He's not a carbon copy of anyone really. So that's one that I should maybe put a little more thought into.
Yeah, no, that's intriguing if he slips. Well, it's intriguing if any of these guys slip. Yeah. Okay. You told me it's Simone and not Simon. So I'll just say how I was going to say it and you correct me and then tell us about Simon Edvinsson.
Yes, Simone Edvinsson. This kid's another big boy. So 6'4", 200 plus pounds, very, very good skater, more dynamic skater than Owen Power. He can skate very, very well. He is almost aggressive to a fault offensively. He's one of these kids that will rush every puck that he touches. I would rather this unbridled stallion that you need to cool out and put the reins on a little bit than trying to light a fire under somebody and be like, no, come on, engage. So he's got that going for him. physically, he has some of the best tools in the class. With that size, that skating, he's got a good shot. He can make subtle plays, little subtle passes and things like that. But we've heard this story before in Vancouver. He has all the tools, but I'm not sure he has the toolbox to carry him around with. And so once you get up into the NHL and everyone else is big and fast, you don't have that time and space, that advantage that he's had at the junior level. Even playing a little bit in the SHL, he has a slight advantage at times in the minutes that he plays. Then things are going to get, I think, could get messy. Is that when pressured hard and when he can't rush the puck every chance he can, and if he does, he's going to get his pocket picked. And now we're going back the other way. He needs to go to the right organization, I think, to be developed properly. So an organization that has strong player development, that can work with him, that can harness his talents. And we'll talk about a kid in a few minutes, Mason McTavish, is that use what you have and understand your limitations and use that to your advantage rather than just go all the time. So for me, Edmondson, not my favorite player in this class, because I do put a huge weight into intelligence, because I think that if you are smart, you can overcome some limitations in some of your physical attributes. If you have all the physical attributes, sometimes you can't overcome the mental fortitude to make plays. And we've seen that with, Jake Virtanen in Vancouver, a player with his talent and his physical tools. He should be a dominant player, but he can't put it together. And it's just, that happens sometimes.
Do we dare try and find a comp for Edmondson?
Maybe Rasmus Ristolainen, maybe something like that, So someone who's gonna, tease you and you want him to be better and you keep waiting for it to happen. And even though you feed him all the minutes, that maybe the results aren't going to be there.
Right. Cool. So we got the 4 defensemen in Power, Brandt, Hughes, and Edmondson. Is there anyone else on the blue line that could jump in the top 10 in your eyes, Cam?
Good question. Just pulling on my board here.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really another defenseman that's close. Stanislav Svozil is a Czech kid. I don't see him sniffing around the top 10. And then we're kind of getting out of the D range until towards the end of the first.
Awesome. No, thank you. That was brilliant. And I love how you kind of set up the nice contrast between Clark and Edmondson just in hockey IQ. So that'll be something that we can definitely keep tabs on. Let's talk about the forwards. You mentioned Matty Beniers right at the top. I presume that he's near the top of your board. We'll get to that, but tell us about Beniers and what he can bring to a team.
Yeah. So I can give you the comp right out the door here is think Dylan Larkin. So a speedy, two-way pivot that's going to chew up minutes in all situations. If you're a contender, you want him as your second line center. If you're a bottom feeder, maybe he's your first line center, like he is in Detroit. So I think he's going to be a hell of a player, not going to put up gaudy point totals. So he's one of these guys that's probably going to put up, 50 to 65 points most seasons. Play on your power play, play on your penalty kill, impact the game at 5-on-5. The wheels on this kid are terrific. And he's also a very smart player. So I grabbed like a 30-second clip of him that I've used a few times over the year of him ragging the puck on the PK, stealing it, holding it, leaving the zone, chasing it. Like no one could take it from him. And he just ragged 30 seconds off the power play and then dumped it in and went for a change. And he's that type of player that he can really help you in all situations. He didn't show out as much as Power did at the World Championships. He had the ankle injury there later too, but just the fact that he was there and playing at the men's level, I think is a great sign that he's near ready to be an NHL player. I think that both him and Power should go back to school. I think Kent Johnson should as well when we get to him. So they all play at Michigan together. But yeah, he's going to be a really nice center for a team at the top of this draft that they can kind of pigeonhole into their third line role as soon as he steps into the league, and then have him elevate up as he goes along.
Awesome. I'd take a Dylan Larkin for sure. You mentioned Ken Johnson. Let's talk about the third of the Michigan trifecta, local boy. What's he like?
Yeah, KJ, he's fun. He's a lot of fun. The kid has probably the best hands in the crop, one of them anyways. Very, very slippery with those hands. He can stick handle off his hip pocket. He's a problem solver. So we were talking about planners versus problem solvers. He is a problem solver. So in transition, he gets himself into trouble. He can often get himself out of trouble. I loved him playing in the BCHL, playing for Trail. Really fun player there. Dominant player. I did not expect him to translate to the NCAA as a draft eligible player so well. And he surprised me with that. And now it helped that he went to Michigan and he was playing with Matty Beniers all season and he got top power play time. And so, but he was good. He earned those minutes. And he is He's not a center for anyone who thinks he's a center. He's definitely a playmaking winger. But he's got great hands, great vision. And he can set players up. So, he had a couple of 3-4 assist games in the NCAA this year, and that's really impressive. Now, the knock, he plays on the outside. So he is a perimeter style player, and he loves to hold on to the puck. So when you're on the outside and you love to hold on to the puck, you often do these big Mason Raymond-like circles around the zone, not accomplishing too much. Not too many players in the NHL can do those and then actually turn them into something. Only the very, very elite players, I think. He loves to slow the pace of play down, slow it right down to how he likes it, and then work those hands, work that magic. Not going to be able to do that in the NHL as much either. Only the very elite players, and especially burners, right? You come up flying through the neutral zone with that speed, get everybody backing up, and then whoop, slide it right back, and all of a sudden you got all the space. He doesn't have that electric style speed. He's not Nick Ehlers. He's not going to come in and kill you in transition. But, he's offensively, I think, upside, maybe the highest skill package in the draft. It's just, can you get him to get into that dotted line, to get into the middle of the ice, to fight, to get into the slot, to be more aggressive, going to the net, to give and go, and then take the hit and go in there. You need him to work on a shot. You need him to kind of redevelop that shot, a la what Pettersson did in after he was drafted. Pete talked about breaking his shot down into 17 or 18 tiny little motions. And then he went from a draft eligible player who wasn't a great skater and had a muffin for a shot to being an above average skater with an absolute rocket. So that speaks to Pettersson's intelligence. I don't know if many players have that kind of level to get to, obviously, but that would be the route that KJ would need to take if he wanted to be a star. Is it possible? It is. We see it. We saw it here in Vancouver. Is it likely? I'm going to say no. But I know Craig Button compared him to Pettersson, and that stylistically, I don't think Craig is actually saying he's going to be Pettersson. Right. I compare him more to Sven Berchi, and who a player was an amazing junior player in the WHL. Terrific numbers, Crosby-like numbers. And if he was that great of a player with those numbers, he would have gone top 3 his year. Instead, he went 13 or 14. And, things didn't break right for Berchi. I still think he's an NHL player. I think he should have been the last couple of years as well. And so, you might be getting that out of Johnson. You might be getting a guy who can help you on the second or third line and on your second power play unit and chip in some points. Maybe he's a 40-point guy. But, the upside's there. Maybe everything breaks right and you've got yourself a first-line playmaking winger who can be electric. I just think that your back end risk it's there. It's palpable. So, again, Vancouver, if they're picking at 5 and you've got 4 or 5 options there, no, I'm not going to support taking Kent Johnson at that spot, but you're picking at 9. Yeah. You're maybe going to have a choice between 2 players if Jesper Wallstrom goes early. And then if it's KJ and Simone Evanson, yeah, go ahead, go Kent Johnson. Or if they don't have a choice and he's a guy at 9, all right, he's your guy. He automatically becomes your top prospect too, because Podkolzin's stepping in and he's going to be a top prospect for you, and he'll go back to school and hopefully put up huge numbers, and then you bring him in and see what you can do.
Awesome. Great breakdown, Cam. Thank you for that. Another name that's linked to maybe being around at 9, and you've talked about him already, is Mason McTavish. What's he like?
This is my guy. In this.
So he's not going to be there at 9 then.
No, I mean, he might. I mean, Central Scouting put him number 2 on their North American skaters list. And so that right there is pretty telling. So that's ahead of Beniers, ahead of Luke Hughes, ahead of all these kids, Clark. But he is a big, powerful, mean center. He went over and played pro hockey in Europe this year when the OHL shut down. And, I mentioned I'm writing a big dive onto him, and I've got, a dozen clips of him taking 3 hard strides and then planting these, 30-year-old men into the boards. Like, he is not afraid to engage physically. 6'2", 210 already. He looks like Ogie Oglethorpe. He's got the curly hair from Slapshot, and he plays a little bit like him too. Terrific release. Like, one of the best shots in the draft. Heavy release. He can pop out into that bumper spot, kind of what Horvat does on the power play, where he's net front, pops out, gets open, and it's in the back of the net before you know what's happening. Really nice hands. I thought he showcased the complete package at the U18s, and that is why he probably won't be available at 9, is because he had such a strong U18, and that recency bias will probably come into play for teams. Also, the fact that, outside of Beniers, he's the only true center prospect in this top, 15.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned before, is that, Evanson doesn't know what he can and cannot do. McTavish knows exactly what he can and cannot do. And so he's not an electric skater. He's not going to be this weaving in and out east-west guy. He's going to be a north-south skater, but he does have the good hands, but he knows how to use everything. He knows how to use his body well to protect the puck, his stick to protect the puck. He knows when to fall back defensively. I think he's going to be an excellent defensive center, like someone that you can really rely on defensively to match up against those big horses on the first line that you're coming up against, while also turn the puck and get going in the right direction. So for my money, I've slid this out there already. Another guy who I've got basically locked into my top 3 right now. Wow. And so we'll see if the board falls that way. We'll see what Bob McKenzie's final list comes out with his scouts that he pulls, because that is usually an excellent indication of where players are going to go. There's always a surprise or two, but if Bobby Mac's list has them at 12, it only takes one team to step up and make a move, but there's a decent chance that he's going to be around there. And, I've heard some whispers that Vancouver really likes McTavish. Sometimes they'll put out those little smoke signals and say they like guys when that's not the guy. If you remember from Pettersson's draft year, they didn't say a word about Pettersson.
No one knew about him. Yeah.
Right. And then that's usually sometimes what teams aren't saying is what really speaks, the loudest. Yeah. So we'll see. I love him. I think he's going to be a hell of a player. I think he's going to be another guy that's probably best served as your second line center. Yeah. Which is fine in Vancouver. But he's going to be someone who's going to chew up minutes, and really teams are going to hate to play against him.
This probably isn't your comp, but when you were talking about him, it sounded like Ryan Getzlaf to me.
Yeah, not 6'3" or 6'4", but not too far off. He probably doesn't have that 100-point upside. I compared him to Pierre-Luc Dubois. Another kid who really rose quickly in his draft year. He's a little taller, but he doesn't play as heavy as McTavish does. Yeah. I did a mock draft for EP Ringside there, and I sent McTavish to Columbus at 5 and just said, they're hoping that this is their next Pierre-Luc Dubois and that the relationship lasts a little longer. Yeah. So yeah, he's going to be a good player. Maybe not an all-star, but he's going to be a very good player.
Awesome. 2 more guys. Let's talk about, is it Dylan Guenther or Gunther? And tell us about him, Gunther. Not just Gunther.
Yeah.
Tell us about him.
So this kid's got probably, we were talking about McTavish's heavy release. Gunther's probably has the best he's the best pure shooter in this draft. So his shot coming in flight off the wing, so in motion off that inside foot, it's a rocket. And that is a pro level shot if I've ever seen one. We talk about skills that you can stack and that you can transition to the NHL. There are goals that, I watch all these games in junior hockey and in USHL and in BCHL and all these levels that you look at, a guy can score 50 goals in a season and you can be like, maybe 10 of those are NHL goals. And someone else could score 20 goals in a season in the OHL and you could be like 15 of those are NHL goals. And so that's kind of what separates people that look at box scores and those who actually watch the games, is that Gunther has an NHL shot. Like, he's going to score some goals. Yeah. I know some people like him number 2, like he could go early. Well, I think he could potentially be there for Vancouver at 9. Not one of the ones that I really think could be there, but he just tore apart the WHL in the bubble this year. The Oil Kings, Edmonton Oil Kings, they played in a really weak bubble group, and so he feasted. He scored over a goal a game. It wasn't even fair. Their goaltender Sebastian Cossa had like a .955 save percentage, and that was without breaking a sweat. So no, Gunther, he's a really nice player. He's not great at using his teammates all the time. That'll have to come along. I think he has it in him, though. I do. I think that he's just so demonstrably better at finishing at this level that he's like, why wouldn't I just go down and let it rip bar in? So I think that'll come along. I think the hands, they're pretty good. Yeah. The two-way game is, gonna need a little bit of work, but you're paying this kid to score goals. So, maybe a heartbreaker in Vancouver right now is think Tyler Toffoli. The kid knows how to finish. He's not a burner, but he can skate well enough. But very, very smart at finishing plays, and he can get into those dirty areas too. So he's not afraid to get into the slot and take some abuse to get the goals too. So he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to be more of a second line finisher on a good team. Maybe he bumps up to your top line in a right situation, but a first power play type guy anyways.
Wonderful. Oh, these breakdowns are awesome. Last one I'll get you to do in depth. The Swedish forward, William Eklund.
Yeah, I like Eklund a lot. It's funny. I like him, and sort of a few people, we like him more than some of the Swedish scouts like him, which might be a little bit of a red flag, but he plays with terrific pace, great pace. He outplayed Lucas Raymond and Alexander Holtz in the SHL this year by a decent margin. Now another 2002 born player, so he's only 4, 5, 6 months older than those, or younger than those two. But he's very, very smart, very smart. So another player who, can see the play developing in front of him, has the awareness. Again, to go to the Canucks, we remember Todd Bertuzzi coming in on the rush, and he would somehow see this trailer with that beautiful saucer pass, and it hits it, and the guy's wide open in the slot. And not a ton of players can do that. And William Eklund does that right now in the SHL, and he did it all season long. Coming in on the break, you think that he's running out of time and space, and whoop, there's a sweet pass to a guy who's wide open. You're like, I didn't even see that. And I'm watching from above with the bird's eye view. So he's really crafty with that. He's got good hands, works hard defensively. Another guy who probably projects as a second liner in the NHL just because he's not electric in any one skill or two skills, but just a really smart, complementary, top six scoring dual threat winger, basically. Another guy who has played the middle of the ice. And I think that, people think that Kent Johnson could be a center. I think that William Eklund could be a center. He's probably better suited on the wing, but he could adapt and adjust and move back to the middle of the ice. He's going to be good. I think he's the number one ranked Euro in this draft right now. He should be anyway. Yeah. And we've had him at the top of our board at EP Rinkside at times. He's someone that's been in our top 5 basically all year. I don't think he's fallen out of my top 6 for me. Mm-hmm. He's a good player, but again, because he doesn't have one standout quality that you can point at and be like Gunther, this kid's going to shoot the lights out. He's probably going to be a 30 goal scorer. Right. Power, he's probably going to play 26 minutes a night. Benier's got that great speed. He could be there at 9. And if he's there at 9, I'm very happy if I'm Vancouver. Because, obviously the Swedish connection, but he's just a very, very good player. Like I would be worlds happier if it's William Eklund over Simon Edvinsson or something like that. Like I think there's a clear differential in talent and upside between those two players, even though they play different positions.
Sure. And comp for him, Swedish or not?
Yeah. Someone I haven't really thought about a comp on.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what? I might have to pass on that one.
No problem. Just a couple of quick ones before we get to rapid fire at the end. Do you see Jesper Wallstrom being taken in the top 10 as a goaltender?
I think he should.
Mm-hmm.
I think he should go in the top 10. I think I keep giving Detroit these goalies in mock drafts. This is the second year in a row. I gave Maskarov last year, and it's mostly to just bother Prash, who covers the Red Wings for the Athletic, and he's a good guy. And we're in a Discord group together with prospect writers, and he just hates it because he knows I'm just doing it to egg him on. But I honestly believe that if Detroit at wherever they're picking 5 or 6, that I think that they should take a long, hard look at him because they have their pipeline is pretty well stocked, but they don't have that goaltender of the future. And look at the playoffs right now, the Final Four. The 4 starting netminders are all first rounders. Yeah, and I think that all the goalies nowadays too. It's not, here we are, 6 years later after Thatcher Demko, 7 years later after Thatcher Demko got drafted. Now he's the man, right? Like he could have been a finalist for the Vezina this year. Like he's there, he's ready. But it's been 7 years, right? So do you really want to put in that kind of draft capital on a player in the top 5 or 6 and wait 5 to 7 years? But I do believe that in certain systems, if there's an avenue for you to get there, or even if there isn't, like look at Spencer Knight. They drafted him 13th overall. Bobrovsky got signed for $1 million years, but he's there now, and he could be the starter next season. And we're talking 3 years out. So I think that these guys are so well trained, especially coming out of professional hockey. So Askarov playing in the KHL, Wallstad is playing in the Swedish Hockey League, putting up strong numbers. Like he is technically very, very sound. He doesn't rely on his athleticism as much as some of these other goaltenders that, they can really work well for them, make those big dramatic second and third saves. But it can also hurt you, if you're not technically there, especially when you get to the NHL and a goalie coach gets his mitts all over you and they want to change how you play. That's when we could see an extended wait period because they have to redefine their game. I think technically he is so sound right now. He's got that unflappable nature that he could be someone, hell, if he went to Buffalo somehow, if they picked up another first round pick and then an Eichel trade or a Reinhart trade, I think he could go and play there in 2 seasons and really compete for starting minutes. Wow. So that's when you're picking in the top 10, like you're happy with that, right? If you can get a guy 2 years out pushing for meaningful minutes on your team, I think you take that. Sure, you might be waiting 4 or 5 years if things don't go well and he needs to rework his game, or if there's a starter already in place and he's not going to be able to push out the incumbent, then let him go play in Sweden for 2 years, let him play in the AHL for 2 years, then you've got your guy. But again, those guys are valuable. I know that goalie trades don't happen too often because there's an abundance of them. Only the true stars get the big bucks in free agency, and usually it comes back to bite you. But I think that he's got the talent, especially in this class, that is light on top end talent. that he could be a star netminder. And there aren't too many players on this list that I'm looking at that could be legitimate stars. And so, yes, I think he should go in the top 10, but if I'm putting my money on it, I don't think he will.
Well said and well said. I've been working on that one for a little bit. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I'm not going to make you do your whole top 10 because I want to be respectful of your time. But if you want to give me who's at the top of the board, your top 2 or 3, I wouldn't complain. And then more importantly, Cam, I'm curious, give me 2 or 3 guys that you think, given your top 10, may be around for the Vancouver Canucks at 9, realistically. Not we want them to be, but we realistically think these 2 or 3 guys will likely be there at 9. So maybe start at your top of the board if you're okay with 2 or 3 picks, and then tell me who's going to be there at 9 for the Canucks to consider.
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to release my board this month. I think
we're I don't want to make you.
Yeah. We're waiting to a few of us. So the elite prospects board will come out, and then a few of us who have our own personal list will all release on the same week, and it'll be kind of a fun week.
Awesome.
But I've danced around the top, and I'm not even going to say that it's 100% right now because I lose sleep over these things all the time. But right now I've got Owen Power at number 1. I've got Mason McTavish at number 2.
Wow.
Okay, so yeah. So and then on at the tail end of that draft at the board, I've got Luke Hughes at 10, and I've got Kent Johnson at 9.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's kind of that's the bookend for that top 11.
Yeah.
So who I realistically think Vancouver could have a chance at, I think if New Jersey passes on Luke Hughes, I think there's a decent chance he's there.
Interesting.
Okay? I think that there's the 3 guys who I've kind of earmarked as likely to be there, I think are Edmondson, Hughes, Johnson.
Yeah.
That one of those guys is probably going to be there. And if Wallstrom goes earlier, then maybe it's 2. But that's kind of in my mind too. And I'll get the Rolodex out and start trying to hammer these scouts in different organizations and try to get a feel on who's going to do what and where. I don't have any connections in Seattle yet. That's something on my to-do list. I got to start bugging some of those people there, see if I can figure some stuff out. But,
that's awesome.
But that's just kind of my general feeling. And you never know, right? Especially this year, I think it is a complete crapshoot outside of, Powers at the top. I think that's very, very likely that he's going first overall to Buffalo, even though it's not a perfect fit. They already have Rasmus Dahlin there on the left side, but what do? You go ahead and take the guy and let him chew up a ton of minutes and let Dahlin kind of roam free on your other pair.
So if you are correct, Cam, and somehow Edmondson, Hughes, and Johnson are sitting there at 9 because of whatever happens, and you're Jim Benning, who do you take of those 3 for the Canucks?
If I'm Jim Benning, I'm taking Kent Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He's the highest ranked guy on my board. I don't have Edmondson in my top 11. So that could be tough for you too. So I would just stick with the best player available, even though you don't really need wingers in your system and you need D, but you don't really need a left side D anyways. But so if you're saying I'm Jim Benning as in what do I think he's going to do?
Yeah.
I think it's really tough because I think Simon Edmondson is very much a Jim Benning type player. Big, fast guy, maybe not the smartest player, but you can just look at him and you can be like, that guy has NHL level skills. Yeah. Let's see what we can do with him. And then on the other hand, it's like, there's Luke Hughes and we want that brother connection. We can sell tickets, right? Like Aquilini's going to love that. Like that is a marketing, that's a gold mine for him. So I think that if those 3 are sitting there and I think then it becomes a tough choice between Hughes and Edmondson. And if I'm him, I'm taking Hughes, and I think he probably would too. I think that they would like that ability to link up the brothers and give Quinn an extra reason to stick around long-term.
I hear you. All right, Cam, to wrap up, this is what I call the 5-hole. This was super fast, just very quick answers. You don't even have to go into depth if you don't want to. Number 1, what's the sport that you excel most in playing? The one sport.
Always loved hockey the best, but I was a better baseball player.
What position?
I moved over to third when I got older, but I played short and first a little bit too.
Oh, nice. Number 2, you're starting a team from scratch. Is it Elias Pettersson or Quinn Hughes?
Pettersson.
Mm-hmm. Need that center.
And I think that he's supreme. I think he could be like an MVP sort of thing. Quinn's great, but he's not quite at that level. Yeah.
Cool. Number 3, you won't offend me because I'm half of each. Do you prefer Japanese food or Chinese food, and why?
Japanese food. Sushi. Yeah.
Good choice.
It's close.
Yeah. Speaking of food, number 4, this person is taking you out for dinner and they're paying for you. Are you going out to dinner with Travis Green, Jim Benning, or Francesco Aquilini?
Oh man, I've had conversations with Travis and Jim. I've never met Francesco. I'm probably going out with Jim. As he's been nothing but kind to me when I've met him and chatted with him a few times, and he's one of these guys. He's kind of like George Bush Jr. That they say that he had a bad rap, but you could never sit down in a room with him and have a drink and not go out like laughing and loving the guy. And I think Benning would be a similar time. I think
he just seems like good, honest, transparent to a fault, and good storyteller. Maybe
exactly right. I think it'd be a good time. Yeah.
Awesome. And lastly, Cam, you can take a couple seconds to think about this one. What's one thing that people don't know about you that you don't mind them knowing about you? What's one thing that maybe they don't know about you?
Yeah. Something people don't know me. I'm pretty honest. I'm pretty open about these things. When I was in university, I did my history degree in 20th century European history, and I focused on the Holocaust. But I did that because my grandma was a nurse for 5 years over in the war. And she was my best friend for a lot of years there. We were really, really close. She lived to be just about 98, but she lived just an incredible life. So she was a nurse in the States, and she came up as soon as war broke out. And she's like, I'm coming home and I'm gonna volunteer. And they came home and they said, we got some nurses, but the South African army is lacking. And she's like, put me where you need me. So she hopped on a boat at 25 and basically became like the lead nurse for all these South African nurses. And she was in London for the Blitzkrieg. And she told me these stories about her experience over there that she said she'd never told anybody. It was just too raw, too painful, too real. And, later in her 90s, she shared those stories with me. And so that really inspired my love of history and of that time. And so to finish up my degree, I ended up traveling around Europe in a Holocaust field school. It was what it was called, through UVic. And so we went to Germany and Austria and Poland, and we went to universities and memorialization and memorials and things like that. And we studied and we learned and we spoke to survivors. And it was just an incredible, life-changing experience, I would say. And it was right during the 2011 Cup run.
Wow.
So I was over there doing that while the Canucks were doing their run, and I almost flew home early to be home for Game 7, and I'm glad I didn't. So I ended up watching that game in the London sports bar, a soccer bar that had the game on. At start at 1 a.m. So not a great finish to the trip for that, but at least I didn't cut my trip early and spend an extra money to get back just for that.
Oh, Cam, that's a beautiful story. I've been to Auschwitz. That's my only connection. That's my lived experience. And yeah, I can only imagine what your grandma shared with you. That's a real cool story. Thanks for sharing that with me, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. And yeah, Auschwitz, right? Powerful stuff when you're there. Hey, that was humbling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. Now, honestly, I feel so much more prepared now, more educated. When someone asks me on a live stream, who do you think the Canucks will take? I'm going to memorize like the 40 minutes we just had, and I'm going to be ready with a good answer. Cam, this has been really, really good. I really appreciate it. And where can people where can people subscribe and follow you on social media as well?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I was talking about, epringside.com, get that sub. And you get all the advanced stuff at Elite Prospects too. So if you want game logs and different stuff for that, you get the stats too. But then all the work we're doing over there's tons of articles coming out every day. We, no bias here, but we rival The Athletic for the amount of content that we pump out with a smaller staff. And arguably, I think it's just as good. It's different. It's not that media access stuff. It's a little bit different in that regard for most of it, but yeah, we put out a ton of great stuff. So sign up there, and then you get our draft guide too. And yeah, you can follow me at hockey_Robinson at Twitter, where I'm talking prospects or Canucks or, making cheeky comments about life. And so that's what I usually spend way too much time doing.
Love it. And Cam, good luck taking your son down in mini sticks tonight. I appreciate that. And appreciate your time with us here today.
Thank you. Yes, I'll need it. He's got a wicked elbow too.
Great. Stay safe, man. Take care.
Yeah. Cheers.